we, after 2 years of working with a lot of the same people who developed a sense of who their children were, and made sense. They were making sense of the approach that we were using, and as I said, they were using that as a guide, but they were moving within that framework with some flexibility. We realized that what we needed to do is to describe what that framework is. And like I said, in November you're going to get all the real, I mean, if you want to just come and nerd out for 2.5 hours about what's happening in the brain with kids who have math disabilities, it's fascinating. For me. But what we really want to do is just give you, this is the framework in which we live and move in. And then just jump into the activities, and then constantly be relating what we're doing in the activities to the framework. And so when you're in front of a child who doesn't seem to be following, doesn't seem to be able to work with the script that I've given you, you're going to know what to do. You're going to know what to do. So, let me, so Retta and I put this together over the summer. Let me just go backwards. And what our new people don't know, Retta was the one who started our mass support. I think Mr. Dwight started with her up at Perry. Yeah. And so we were revising our PowerPoint from last year, and she has shaped this program. I think for people from many different walks to come together to work in schools to teach math requires a community that has structure, but a sensitivity to who the people are that we are working with. And it just takes a certain level of grace, and lots of grace. And Retta is anchored in who she serves, and she served God well here. And so when we were writing this, she said, "I'm taking my name off." I said, "No, you're not. You helped develop this." Hey, how are you? Welcome, Joy. All right. I'm going to have you two share, Amy, your book. Good to see you. So that was my little kudos to Retta. Our approach is going to include 5 core elements. We talked a little bit about relationship during connections. Our kids come to tutoring carrying just a lot of shame, and being able to connect with them and create a safe place where they can take risks is essential. Multisensory, I'm going to get into that. Our approach has a structure to it, so that what Lisa does on Monday, Miss Louise is going to do on Wednesday. It's going to look familiar. They're going to know that there's a flow to the lesson. And Lisa's going to bring her own way of approaching it, and Miss Louise is going to bring hers. But there's going to be enough consistency that it's going to work for our kids. Scaffolding, and what that means is we give them the support. So if our kids are struggling, we know how to back it up and make it more accessible for them, and we'll talk about that. And Holy Spirit, there's just something beautiful and miraculous that happens when God's people come together in service to the kingdom. and it's really an honor to work with you guys. So, move on. Relationship. The element, I think the key ingredients to building a relationship with a child who is at this point has had a month of, I'm not really sure what's happening in my classroom, and it seems like everyone else does, is coming to understand who your children are, and that's what you've done by coming here today. I have articles and books that I can just flood your email with if you would like me to do that, but you need to give me permission. And but validating what they are experiencing, being able to see what they're seeing in that activity through their eyes, and understand why. I saw a classroom teacher who had that TINS frame that I was telling you guys about in front of you, so she had this on the overhead, and she said, 6, 5, 1, 6, can't you see that 6? And I just, no, they don't see that 6. And how heartbreaking it was for her, and how heartbreaking it was for the kids. And so being able to, whether you say it or, oh no, of course you don't see that 6. And or of course you're having even trouble seeing the 6 here. Let me pull out the blocks. And being able to
meet them where they're at.
Meet them where, thank you, Audrey. Yeah. Celebrating effort. I know that we love giving props to kids, and many times our prop is, oh, you're so smart. I was one of those kids who was told frequently that I was so smart, but I knew I was working my tail off just trying to understand. And so there was always that question in the back of my head, is like, either you're smart or you're not. And I'm not feeling smart right now. And so obviously I'm not. Instead, we praise effort. Did you see what you did? That was, you got, you were stuck right there, but did you notice what you did? Whether it was putting the blocks on top of the dots and a child knowing intuitively that that's what they needed to do to make sense of it. I want you to celebrate those sort of moves that a child makes to bring meaning to what's happening at the tutoring session. And then embracing unexpected moments of joy. And I did. I'm really intense. I feel very strongly and passionately about what I do. I can be a little intimidating. I don't want to be. I want you guys to have fun. What we do is fun, and relationships are built through joy. And I could go on that one, but I'm not. So multisensory. Okay, now I'm going to have to escape. So one of the things that I say to my kids over and over and over again is make sure your mouth matches your fingers. Make sure your mouth matches your body. And now I'm going to have to, you're going to get out of this because I haven't quite figured out how to do that yet. Alrighty. Quick video on
letters with your eyes, so you see.
Okay,
the auditory piece.
So there's a brief explanation to what multisensory is. Alrighty, we're going to do some subitizing. And what I would like you to do is, I'd like you to think about what you just heard about multisensory, about phonemes and graphemes, and I want you to think about how it might apply to this particular activity. So, Miss Audrey, I'd like you all to turn to, you know what, I'm going to do the whole thing. I'd like you to turn to the first lesson. I'm going to introduce a new, if you
don't
shape.
have a binder, so if you can look off of someone else's.
Oh.
The people that don't aren't specifically in math support, but like Brian, you might be doing some of this stuff at Tutoring Center. Dwight, this would just be good for you to know
I'm
what some
wondering,
kids might be
Bonnie,
struggling
if
with
you
and
could
how
look
to
on Claire's.
plan it.
and I'll
And
just get-
Madison, you will be
Okay,
doing some of those
here
at
we
Tutoring
go.
Center, so you better pay
All right.
attention.
So,
afraid of math.
if
She's
you
gonna be
want
math
to,
tutor.
I had you turn to the supervising drill. Why don't you turn back to the very first tab with the shape chant. I don't think, yeah. So I'm going to pretend that Audrey is just flying along, and she knows all her dot patterns and all her numerals up to 5. And so today I'm introducing a new pattern to her. So I'm going to say, I'd like you to connect the dots with your finger. Will you trace that for me? What shape do you see? You know this. You do, because I've taught it to you. I have taught it. An
Yes,
X.
I see an X and a dot.
Good.
I didn't know.
Yeah,
I didn't know I was supposed to get it
know.
right. I was like, am I supposed to get this one right? It's an X and a dot.
Good, yes. Trace it again and say X and a dot.
X and a dot.
How many do you see?
6.
Yes. Will you trace this and say 6?
6.
Very good. All right. So that's how I introduce the number. And then we move to our, just a little silly chant that, yeah.
We hold it up so people can
Oh,
see.
yes, my bad. So it's the numerals with the dots on it, so it's similar to that touch math, but you can see that it's consistent with a shape that is, all the numbers after 5, it's anchored to 5. Does that make sense? So 6 isn't 3 and 3. It's the way he sets up his dot patterns is he wants the kids to know automatically how close is that number to 5 and how close is it to 10. So if you're looking at the 7 here, you're going to know, oh, all I need is that triangle on top to get to 10. And so there's a really strong visual component that we're building. All right. So have you done this? No, you haven't. I'm going to do this. So this is what. No, I'll pretend like I'm teaching this to you.
I think
for the
I'm a
first
great
time.
example of a student because this stuff makes me anxious too.
Okay,
Because I
good.
struggle to like get my mind and my mouth and my hands to do the same thing.
Oh, good.
So I
Excellent.
don't feel what the kids feel.
So I want you to trace this and say 1 makes a dot.
1 makes a dot.
Then 2 makes a line.
2 makes a line.
3 makes a triangle, and I'm going to go all the way around.
3 makes a triangle.
4 makes a square.
4 makes a square.
5, now I wouldn't do makes an X. Go ahead.
5 makes an
All
X.
right. I wouldn't teach all that to a child the first time. When you sit down with your kindergartners, you're going to do maybe 1 and 2. And so when you're if I just am introducing 6, Audrey would have already known 1 through 5, and she could do 1 makes a dot, 2 makes a line, and it's takes us maybe all of 10 seconds to do our chant, and we go up to the number that they're fluent in, and then we set it aside. All right.
You'll know what number you're working on. So you don't have to decide, we're only doing 1 and 2.
Right.
Beth will tell you,
Yeah, you'll get
you're
the
working on 6, so you'll assume that the kid already knows up to 5.
yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. And so I'd like you to turn now to the supervising drill. Okay. Miss Louise and Amy are my veterans here. Oh, and Mr. Dwight, one of the things that we're adding into the drill is numerals. And so Audrey, oh, shucks. I am so sorry, Audrey, because I know this will be just nerve-wracking to you. I apologize for, Audrey's gonna need some stickers. Yay!
Yes, please, I do need the stickers.
Audrey and I
I
practiced
know why I
this.
need the stickers, and I do need them.
So, we will have stickers for you, and it's important, you'll find out that it's important that their left hand is the 5 and the right hand. So that every time you see blue dots, yep, thank you. Every time you see the blue dots, you put down your left hand. And the red dots will always be your right hand. And there's a reason for that, and I'll get into it. It's super cool. I'll just leave that. It's super cool, but it's really important. This isn't about being left-handed or right-handed, but we want the kids to be able to read from left to right and see, and starting with the biggest number, 5 and 1. 5 and 1 makes 6, 5 and 2 makes 7, all right? So
I need the dots because I forget which hand is supposed to be
And
which color,
she-
which your kids will too.
Yeah,
So
so
I'm a child.
And over the summer, we would paint their fingernails, and if any of you got any of the wooden,
That's okay.
links that I gave you, you think?
Yeah.
All right, there we go. If any of you got my wooden links, I had a volunteer who said, yeah, he had blue fingernail polish. It's like, there's nothing, he's fine, he's fine. But that's what we do, we polish their fingernails. We have, at ATA, 20 minutes. We don't have time to polish fingernails, and this is, but the kids love the stickers, it
Yeah,
works. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold up the cards so that the 5 is on the top, and the numerals are facing down. So there's my 6, and I'm gonna hold it like this. And I know this sounds really prescriptive, but it took us probably a month when we first started doing this to figure out what way flows in doing this. Because you only want the kids to see this for a split second. Counters, if you give a counter a chance to count, they're gonna count. We don't want our kids counting. And there'll be a way to make corrections if they make a mistake, but we don't want them counting, all right? So you're good with this, you're gonna be fine.
1.
Oh, so we're gonna set the timer for 1 minute or 2 minutes if you've got a pair. And I'm gonna treat Audrey as though I have a pair, because I want Audrey to show me her hand first, and then I'm gonna point to her. And she and her partner are gonna say the number. Does that make sense? So I'm gonna do this. You're gonna show me 1 with your red,
Okay.
and you're gonna put it, and you're gonna touch this and say 1.
1.
Okay, let me do that again.
Yeah.
I gave you the wrong directions.
Sorry.
You're good, all right?
1.
So I want you to keep your mouth closed and say, do this. Now say it,
1.
right?
So I
The
touch
reason-
and then say?
Yeah, touch it first. I want to make sure your hands are correct, but I also want to give your partner, it might take your partner a little longer to get their fingers on the table. I want everybody to be okay with their fingers before we move forward, all right? Say it.
3.
Say
1.
it.
0.
Yeah. Okay.
2.
Oh.
5.
Oh. Say it.
3.
Oh. I am so sorry. Say it.
4. 4.
Say it. Mm-hmm. Say it.
2.
Say it.
3. 3.
Say it. Mm-hmm. Say it.
5.
Yeah. And you'll figure out, the kids will become fluent with it. You'll figure out how to make that work for your pair. It may just take a nod. Obviously, the more nonverbal cues that you give a child, the better. because you don't want to interrupt their thinking with your verbal cues. That is the supervising drill. We normally we have not used, and it's not a true supervising drill, we have not used numerals in the past. And I'm almost wondering, this is, again, we're all in pilot mode. Do we put a red dot on our 1? And I'm beginning to, I'm thinking that might be helpful, right? Especially if a child is still, maybe Audrey's, fluent on 5. Maybe I don't need to have a red dot on the 1. But maybe 3 and 4, because she's always mixing up 3 and 4. Maybe I need to put the dots on the numerals for 3 and 4. All right?
And so that is if you see a student struggling, you take a note of that, or you talk to the program leader, and we would make the changes in the deck.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about changing it.
Very good.
But if you're working with the student, you do need to make a note, like, oh, they've been struggling with 3 and 4, so we know to change it.
Do I have?
So maybe you'll show up with these cards, and maybe you'll show up with dots, but it's
Can I ask a-
Yeah, please.
Do the students get confused because the font is different?
It's a good
than
question.
what's on there?
That's a really good question. This is the first time we've used the numeral cards. And, the 4
And the 1.
and the 1. That's a good point. And would your students have gotten confused by that? All right, so I need to rethink 4.
Just, it might be helpful
Yeah.
to keep with, I mean, obviously they're gonna see it in different ones, but to be able to associate,
Okay,
just a thought.
yeah,
Because
that's,
the 1 is, that's very different, isn't it, just straight up and down?
yeah.
Yeah, and the 4.
And it'll be interesting to see what their workbooks look like. How is a 1 written in their workbook? I bet you it is. Kindergarten, I bet you is just 1. Yeah, very helpful, thank you. Yeah. All right, so, I'm gonna give you a chance to practice with your partners. If you would, I think it would be helpful. Yay, good, oh, good. I love the reaction.
Just first, I put it on the
So,
table, you
and
check.
I don't have any
To see if
numbers.
I'm correct.
That's
If
okay.
I'm correct,
You'll
then
get,
we
you'll get the
need
feel
to
for what this looks like.
Okay.
All right.
6. You're good.
So what you're gonna do is you're gonna hold these.
Oh, right.
So it's on top.
Wait, very good numbers.
So this might not look like
Yes.
5. Now look at me.
I'm
Yeah.
just counting the
So
dots.
what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do
Is
this.
that right?
And I think I need to.
I mean, for now.
For now, that's probably good.
All right, you got that?
All right.
So you're flipping it around, you're letting her see it, we're not letting her count.
5.
Okay, counters count. We don't want our counters to count.
Yeah, and they'll count.
6.
They'll look at it and go, oh, wait.
2.
1.
3. 3. 3.
3.
6.
7.
1.
0. 2.
6, I want you to show me 8.
8.
All right, now do you see the 5 and the 5 here? There's your 10 plus 4, 14. Okay, so do you see that you have 5 here? 5 and 5 make 10. You have 3 here and you're adding it to the 1. That makes 10 and 4 is 14.
Okay.
8, so 8 plus.
2 5s and then the 1 and then a 3.
So I'm gonna put it over here. Lisa, show me 7. Bring it up over here. 5 and 5 make 10.
Oh,
I didn't know where you're getting
Yeah.
your number 5.
so you're counting this 5 and that 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's like an addition problem.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
but.
So if you're doing 6 plus 7.
And the little girl who I homeschooled, I was sharing with Dwight, and, oh my goodness, help me out. Courtney, right? Did I get it right? No.
Me?
Yes.
My name?
Madison.
like, what?
Forgive me. My little girl, when she sees 7 plus 6, when she sees the 7, she goes 2. Because she knows that 7 is 2 more than 5. And she sees 6, she'll go 1. 13. So she's ignoring the 5 because she knows that 5 she knows both of those are over 5. So 10, and so she's seen all this in her mind's eye because we have been working with these over and over and over and over again. And you'll see, everything we do is with this dot pattern. All right, What
I
do
think it's important to mention that there are some kids who can do this without learning dot patterns.
80,
But we're working with students, which is a lot of students, what, 80%?
well, it's probably more like 90% of your kids will work with 10 frames and have no problem. And on the north side, it might only be 80 kids are comfortable with a 10 frame. We have a higher proportion of families with learning disabilities on the north side. And in other low-income neighborhoods, it limits how far you can go in school, unless you have great teachers. But, yeah, I'm sorry. So it
So
could
just-
be 80%. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a reminder that we're doing this because this is what these students need to learn.
Yeah. So, multisensory. What made this multisensory? Turn and talk to the person next to you.
And you know you need to knock down some pins with your ball. Scaffolding is like putting up the bumpers, and your teaching strategies are the bumpers to make sure that you get some of the pins knocked down.
Yeah.
So if they're throwing it all the way to the left every single time, you're like, okay, something's wrong here. I need to put a barrier up so that when they're going left, we get them back to the center.
Yeah, excellent, yeah. So, I gave you some very concrete descriptions, breaking down the task, only using hints and cues that are necessary, sequencing activities with, and controlling the level of difficulty, set step-by-step prompts, and corrective feedback. All that to say is, this is all you really need. This is right down here is what I want you to keep in back in your mind's eye. That if you are asking questions and they are stumbling, you go back and you model. You do it for them and then have them repeat it, just like I did for Audrey at the beginning when I was introducing 6. If she's missing 6, you say, trace this, right? So I'm using the concrete or the kinesthetic, trace this. And she can't get it, then I need to go back and model it for her. So here is model, guided, asking questions, and a child can do it independently. And that goes along with concrete, which is the movement, the touch, the objects, versus just a visual. And abstract, I should have just wrote number here. Numbers are very abstract. They're really meaningless. It's not meaningless. We put meaning onto those symbols. So let me show you what this could look like. Which is, so I'm going to take out the 1 because I think the idea of putting a dot on this is critical. Because if a child struggles
We'll show you.
with the 4,
Right?
yeah. So don't make any mistakes on it anymore.
Okay.
Because we need to make.
So
we
when
need
you
that
get your
correct.
deck, the numbers, we just realized have to look like this. They will look like that, not what you currently have.
Yeah,
Okay,
all
figuring
right,
things out.
yeah, all right, so I'll just do this.
3.
Yeah,
I'll mess up the
and we'll
numbers.
just, you know what, I won't worry about the procedure, this will be like we're a king, and you're just touching and saying, all right? All right. Touch.
So I had 2 fingers. When I touch, I realized I only need.
Okay, now, let's see. Oops. All right, say it.
2.
Say it.
2.
Trace that. What shape is that?
Triangle.
I'm using a triangle.
3.
So do you see, so with the finger, a lot of our kids have issues with dexterity. Have them touch, put each finger on a dot. But with if they're missing the name of the numeral, have them trace it. You can say trace and see what happens. And, yeah, right, and that's exactly what's gonna happen. They won't need to say, some may need to say square 4. And what happens is they come to associate square with 4 over and over and over again until they finally just say 4. I don't need them to say square. Ultimately, I want them to get to the numerical 4. But if they have to say square, which is much more concrete, until they're comfortable with 4, I'm okay with that. And that's the scaffolding. So,
And that's why the tracing is so important, because we're so used to tapping,
yeah.
that you want the pattern.
Yes, yes, because I want to get away from the counting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's so-
really, thank you, that's so helpful. Yes.
Do any of them have trouble with their shapes? Like, do they already know?
Oh! Miss Louise. Yes, yes. But I'm told that for some reason triangle is more concrete than 3.
Because the visual is
Yeah.
more distinct,
Yeah.
is my guess.
And so it's easier for them to learn triangle than it is for them to learn 3. But yes, 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 yes. They just fly through dot and line and no problem. They get to, and then you throw in the triangle, oh, triangle, dot, line, triangle, dot, like they're fine. You throw in a square, they flip that 3 and 4 over and over and over again. It is so hard for them. It's, yes, yeah.
So what would you say for a kid that goes square 4?
Oh. What would you do?
Model up for them?
Yeah, you go back. We're tempted to go, do it again.
Square 4.
Isn't that what we do? Yes, again, we need to raise the bumpers, so that they get it right, because when they say, they're going, line? They're
Dot line?
Right, that's what they do.
5?
You don't want them guessing, because as the woman said, every time they say the incorrect answer, it's a kinesthetic experience that's being reinforced, because they are kinesthetic learners. That using their mouth is, and saying the incorrect answer. So, yeah, I know, I won't even go
Yeah,
down
let's
that
keep,
road.
I feel like we're probably bad on time.
Yeah.
Beth and I
What
both
if
are
they
good on
start
time.
with, like you started with the left dot?
In bad shape on time, just letting you know.
Start with the left, does it
Doesn't
matter
No,
which dot?
no, no. I do want them to go all the way around. They don't,
Right,
and I want them to go all the way around with the square as
so it
well.
doesn't matter.
No, no. All right, so, yes, you
We're
might have.
bad on time, I don't think we should practice. I think we should move on.
Yeah, I agree, I agree.
Sorry, guys.
Okay.
We'll practice before. Well,
Oh, no, we
two
don't
days
wanna,
after we have more
we don't wanna
practice.
do that yet. Scaffolding. So. We have 10 minutes. And then we move into
What day
a
does your
much
program start?
larger room where we can move around and jump. So I think what we're gonna do is we are all going to do Play-Doh right now. Why don't you all turn to Play-Doh?
Love it.
October 18th.
When does it start? No, I thought it was a little bit later in the month.
Okay.
That's, maybe that is
So
today.
turn to the Play-Doh
I just will extend.
activity. And at this point, you will have hand sanitizer inside your box. I strongly recommend that you give everybody a squirt before you give them Play-Doh. But this is, I love Play-Doh, but it is germy. And what you're gonna do, oh, no. You guys go ahead and split that up. I'm so sorry.
We bring homemade Play-Doh from home that's soft.
Please.
Yay! This is gonna be so fun.
I just made it with my grandkids.
Oh, how fun!
Different colors, purples, pinks.
Yes. Yeah, all right. So what I do is I give my kids,
I'll make y'all some.
to the count of 20 to make the longest snake they can possibly make. And it just gets all that out of their system, which they need to get out of their system. Go ahead and make a snake. Let me,
Anyone?
What
I'll
if
make
they
one.
don't, I had a kid.
I just hear
that
kids
said,
saying
"Oh,
that,
I had
right?
a snake."
Although there's only one kid. I'm
Just
used to
20
stuff
seconds to play.
No, but they wouldn't, I said make a snake and she said,
It's all about
make a
music.
snake. I don't know, but she was afraid.
she was afraid of snakes?
Then
So
you say,
I said,
yeah,
I
makes,
said make a rope.
That's good.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
The purpose is that
My kids.
they have a chance to play with it because you're about to tell them to do something specific with it. But if they haven't played with it, then when you say make a dot, they're gonna make a cat because they didn't get a chance to.
There you go.
Put it in my
There you go. Give me a snake.
Pro tip for anyone teaching anything ever, if it has manipulatives, let them play with the manipulatives before you have something specific to do with them.
Yeah, yeah. He's just,
Look at yours, wow.
yes.
In the middle though.
You gave her more Play-Doh.
Oh, this is good. Does anyone want one more? This is not bad.
Does anyone need Play-Doh? Someone can take mine if they need it.
All right. Now I want you to work, how about if we work on the number 5 today? Now I want you to break apart your snake into 5 pieces.
I'm here.
All right. Now I'm going to count to 10, and I want you to turn all those pieces into a ball. 1,
Individual balls.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. Did I need to do that slower?
Yes.
So sorry.
It was kind of fun to have to go.
10. All right. Good. All righty. What shape is this? How many zodiacs? Good. Will you make an X in front of you right now? Good job. Okay. So, you're going to see that Play-Doh has, I think, 3 levels. And so this is more of the scaffolding. What we realized is that we didn't want to teach you a whole lot of different activities. We wanted to teach you a few activities that had room to grow as your kids grew. So that you're not, constantly teaching a new game or procedure. They know the drill, and there's only minor adjustments that you're making as they're growing. At the very beginning, I would say, I would have this prompt for them. And later on, you're going to say, make a 5. And they're going to know exactly what the 5 looks like. At this point, at level 1, you're teaching them how to recognize that quantity as 5. So I know I'm going to look over Miss Louise because I want to use the prompt that I actually have written. All right.
So you're in the Play-Doh section
All right.
of your binder
Mhm.
on level 1.
And it's the second page. All right. What shape do you see? I should put it in the shape of an X. And then I'm going to say, show me 5 fingers. Show me 5 fingers. Put each finger on a dot very lightly. That's tricky.
Oh.
Tricky. All right. And I want you to squish it and say 5.
5.
All right. Pick them up.
I'm done.
Make them round again. I'm going to give you that count of 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so that is building that cardinality, right? You're just touching it and saying 5. This is not going to be happening at King this year, I don't think. But at ATA, because we're going to be seeing the kids 3 days, 1 day a week, we want them to be able to see the parts within that. So I'm going to say to you, so I'm now at level 2, being able to just see the parts. And I will say, what shape is in front of you?
X.
X. How many is in an X?
5.
Do you see the triangle inside your X? Okay, put your fingers on the triangle, squish it and say triangle. Leave it there. How many did you squish?
3.
Yes, pick up your fingers. I want you to touch lightly the balls that are still round. What shape is that?
Line.
How many is in a line?
2.
Very good. And at this level, we're not giving the math fact. I want them to see the parts inside the whole. So I don't want to complicate it by going from here into here. They're not ready for that. I have kids who have trouble seeing the triangle inside this. And I'll say to them, well, do you see the triangle? And they look at me like I've got a third head or a second head. Because I just told you it's next. What do you mean, do I see the triangle? It's really hard. So you might need to prompt them with the visual. You might need to go back, right? So that's level 3. We want that, at this level, we just want, and I think with kindergarten, that's all we're gonna do. We're not going to, no, I'm lying. I really want them to be able to say the number fact. So make your balls run. I'm gonna count to
She'll
10.
tell you which level of the game you're playing with your student.
1.
You don't have to decide.
Yeah. But it'll become pretty intuitive to you. You'll know your kids. You'll know, and you'll be writing notes to me. He's got it. He's independent. More practice. We want our kids to overlearn because they're being pushed ahead before they're really solid in their classroom. All right. So level 3 is being able to articulate the number sentence. And I do not have, maybe I do. No, I don't. I'm sorry.
At ATA, and there's 3 days at ATA. There's that maybe. It's a variety, I think. Yeah. Same too.
So, how many balls do you have?
5.
And what I would do at this point is I want them to see the 5 as the whole. So I would have them circle it, and circle that and say 5. All right. I would like you to put your finger on the one in the middle and squish it. How many did you squish? 1. I want you to squish it and say take away 1.
Take away 1.
Good. And now I want you to touch lightly the balls that are still round. How many is that?
4.
Good. All right. Now we're going to put that all together in a number sentence. I want your mouth to match your fingers. So what you're touching is what you're saying. Okay? So let's begin with 5. Ready? 5. Take away 1 equals 4. Okay? And if you want them, that's kind of awkward. If you want them to use 2 hands, that's fine too. All right? And then you'd have a whiteboard and marker, and they would write down the number sentence. All right? And then I would say, can you give me an addition fact beginning with 1 plus? And you would, can I do that? Yeah. Beginning with 1 plus. Go ahead.
1
plus 4.
Okay, and then they would write that down. So they would see not only that they would be able to see that the inverse relationship between addition and subtraction, one is the opposite of the other. And I'm even thinking, I'm sorry I'm saying this, but I made the mistake. If I took away 1 and the difference is 4, I think when I start, not anything, when I start my addition factor, I would start with 4. I would start with the number, the difference. 4 plus 1 equals the 5. All right? So,
Yeah,
not
I
bad.
know. Oh,
So, scaffolding. Do you see, how do you see the changes between the levels and how it relates to scaffolding? Turn and talk to your partner. Do you understand the question?
What was the question?
Okay, let me say it again, sorry. How do you see the relationship between this scaffolding and the different levels in the game of Play-Doh? So we first started with level 1, with being able to recognize the number. All right.
Modeling it all, you know, breaking down the tasks.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
so hard. She did not get to that.
Yeah, yeah. And then by the time we got to the last one,
I promise
we're doing.
I think I did okay.
And ultimately,
excited
I want
to
them to
hear
be able to,
and see.
give me a subtraction by 5, take away 1, and they go, 5, take away 1 equals 4. You know, there's very limited content. And then they make, you know, and then they give me the addition, give me the addition.
Who remembers how to distribute a fraction? Come in, I don't care.
Joy, I promise you.
I'm gonna build that in.
It will become second nature. It's a lot right now, isn't it?
Oh, it is, right? It's a lot for me
Yeah.
after a year.
Fraction, fraction.